Hi, Year 7. Today we're doing another lesson on circumference. Okay, we're doing a second lesson because this is the first time you guys have ever done this, and it's very important that you practice and practice so that you master the new skills. Today we're going to make it a little bit more complicated because we're going to be mixing the two different formulas together, and we're also going to be using some other approximations for pi instead of using the button on our calculator. So question 1 is what we were doing last lesson. It says, use your calculator to find the circumference of the following circles corrected 2 decimal places today. Show all working. Okay, so that's the 3 lines of working. So the first thing you need to do, remember that there's 2 formulas for circumference. One of them has a radius and one of them has a diameter. So we look at the question and we have a look at what we've been given. In the first one, I'm given this length here from the center to the edge, which is a radius. So I want to use the formula C equals 2 pi r because that formula has a radius in it. So all I have to do is substitute in that the radius is 3.5. So second line is 2 pi times by 3.5. When you type that in your calculator, we now want to round to 2 decimal places today. So we want 21 point, we want the 9 and the 9, and everything after that, because it's less than 5, we round everything else off. The units for that will be in meters. In the second question here, we're going all the way from one side of the circle to the other. So this one's a diameter, which means we want to use the C is equal to pi d because it has a d for diameter. So substituting into that, I want to do pi times by 4 in the calculator. Pi times 4 is 12.56, but because there's another 6 after that, we're going to have to round that up to be 12.57. centimeters. Question 2. Now in this question, this is a bit different from what we were doing before. It says use the approximation given for pi to find the circumference showing all working out. So as I said, this is where we're not going to be using the pi button on our calculator. Instead, for 2a here, it says we're going to make pi equal to 3. I mean, that's a pretty it's very bad approximation. We're cancelling all the decimal places off, but it is an approximation. We can use 3 instead of pi. Now, we also need to look, what are we given in this question? I've got a diameter here. So that means that I'm going to use the C equals pi d formula. Okay, so instead of using the pi button on your calculator, I'm going to substitute the 3 for the pi, and the diameter is 10. So 3 times 10 is 30 meters. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, why, oh why would I not just use the button on my calculator? If you do use pi on your calculator, you would get 31 point decimal places after that. Which would be marked wrong. If you are asked to use an approximation for pi, you must put that in. Most of your questions you will get to use the calculator, but there is just a couple here and there where you do need to be able to use these approximations. So another approximation for pi is that pi is equal to 22 over 7. Okay, that was a fairly commonly used one for quite a while. If you do 22 divided by 7, type that in your calculator, you've got the 3.1428. 3.1428, this is the real pi. You've got the 3.14. So it's actually got the first 2 decimal places right. So it's a reasonably good approximation for pi. So let's use that one for this second question. Now, I have been given the radius, the center to the edge. So I'm going to use C equals 2 pi r. R for radius. Now in this question, remember we're not using the calculator for the pi button. We've got the 2 out the front Instead of pi, we're putting in the 22/7 fraction. We also need the radius, which is 14. And then you can just type all of that in your calculator. So 2 times, press your fraction button, 22/7, use the cross arrow to make sure your cursor goes to the end, times by 14 equals 88 centimeters. Okay, so keep an eye out for those ones where you need to use approximate values for pi. So in your workbook today, you're doing exercise 4, which is on pages 12 to 14.